Karen Whitfield stood in her driveway at 6:47 am, wielding a measuring tape like a sword as she documented her neighbor's illegal garden gnome placement. The gnome, a cheerful ceramic fisherman, sat exactly 2.3 inches beyond the approved lawn ornament boundary according to the Willowbrook Estates HOA manual she'd memorized cover to cover. Violation number 47 this month, she muttered, snapping photos from 17 different angles. Her phone buzzed with a text from the HOA board. "Karen, please stop. It's a gnome." She deleted the message without reading it fully and marched toward the community's crown jewel, the decorative bridge spanning the retention pond. But something was wrong. Terribly, catastrophically wrong. The bridge was painted seafoam green. Karen's coffee mug shattered on the pavement. The HOA-approved color was coastal sage, not this abomination that clearly screamed budget hardware store clearance. Her hands shook as she speed-dialed HOA President Jim Morrison. "Jim, emergency. Code red. Someone has vandalized our bridge." "Karen, it's not even 7. The paint, Jim. It's wrong. We need an emergency board meeting." 3 hours later, Karen faced the 5-person HOA board in the community center, armed with color swatches, a magnifying glass, and righteous fury. "This is clearly Sherwin-Williams' sea glass, not Benjamin Moore's coastal sage," she declared, slapping paint samples onto the table. Article 12, Section 3.4 explicitly states. "Karen," interrupted board member Sandra Chen, "the contractor mixed up the paint. It happens." "Happens?" Karen's voice cracked. "This is our property values we're talking about. Our legacy." Jim rubbed his temples. "We'll have it repainted next month when the budget allows." "Next month?" Karen stood so abruptly her chair toppled backward. "Absolutely not. I'll handle this myself." That evening, Karen backed her Honda CR-V up to the bridge, its trunk loaded with 5 gallons of proper coastal sage paint and a determination that would make Napoleon proud. If the board wouldn't protect their community standards, she would. She worked through the night, meticulously covering every inch of seafoam heresy with approved perfection. By dawn, the bridge gleamed in regulation glory. Her phone exploded with notifications. Text after text from neighbors, all saying the same thing. The bridge looked exactly the same as before. Karen squinted at her masterpiece, then at the paint can label. In the harsh morning light, she read the fine print she'd missed in her passionate haste. Sea glass and coastal sage were the same color, just different brand names. Jim Morrison's pickup truck pulled up behind her. He stepped out slowly, surveying the scene. Paint cans, brushes, and Karen covered head to toe in what was essentially identical paint. "Karen," he said carefully, "we need to talk." But Karen was already planning her next move, studying the community's landscaping with fresh eyes. If the board couldn't see the difference between proper and improper, she'd have to escalate her methods. The war for Willowbrook Estates had only just begun. 3 weeks after the Great Bridge incident, Karen had transformed her garage into a surveillance command center. Security cameras monitored 17 different HOA violations across the neighborhood, their feeds streaming to 3 computer monitors she borrowed from her husband's home office. "Target acquired," she whispered into a Bluetooth headset, watching Mrs. Patterson's sprinkler system water her driveway instead of her lawn. "Water waste violation, Sector 7. Her husband Derek appeared in the doorway, coffee in hand and defeat in his eyes. "Karen, it's Saturday morning. Normal people are sleeping in. Normal people don't live in premium planned communities with strict aesthetic standards," she replied, zooming in on the Hendersons' mailbox that had clearly faded from colonial blue to something dangerously close to harbor gray. Derek sighed and retreated. He'd stopped fighting these battles months ago, right around the time Karen had started measuring grass blade heights with a ruler. Karen's phone buzzed with a notification from the community Facebook group. She opened it to find a post from Jim Morrison. "Reminder: HOA board election next month. Current board member Sandra Chen is stepping down. Nominations now open." Karen's heart raced. A board position. Real power. The ability to enforce standards without interference from the weak-willed committee members, who clearly didn't understand the vision of Willowbrook Estates. She immediately posted her nomination. Karen Whitfield for HOA Board. Experience: 847 violation reports filed. Platform: excellence through enforcement. Time for real leadership. The responses came quickly. Please no. Mike Torres. God help us all. Sandra Chen. Is it too late to move? Anonymous. Psychiatric. The words stuck in her throat. I'm protecting our community. You installed surveillance equipment on other people's property, Jim said quietly. You filed over 200 violations in the past month, including reporting Sandra for suspicious nighttime activity when she was walking her dog. Mrs. Patterson found you measuring her rose bushes at 5 a.m. yesterday. Karen looked around the circle of faces. Neighbors she'd been protecting, board members she'd been trying to join, her husband who'd been watching her spiral into obsession. The bridge, she whispered, grasping for something concrete. I fixed the bridge. I made it perfect. Sandra's expression softened slightly. Karen, the bridge was already perfect. The paint was exactly right from the beginning. The truth settled over Karen like a suffocating blanket. All her work, all her vigilance, all her dedication to maintaining standards, none of it had been necessary. The community had been fine without her intervention. But as the group began moving toward the vehicles, Karen's phone buzzed with a notification. A new post in the community Facebook group, timestamped just minutes ago. Emergency. Someone has broken into the community pool area and disabled all the security cameras. Equipment destroyed. This is escalating beyond HOA disputes now. Jim Morrison. Karen looked up from her phone to find Sandra Chen watching her with an expression that was no longer sympathetic. It was calculating, almost predatory. Funny thing about that pool break-in, Sandra said quietly, so only Karen could hear, happened right around the time I was here talking to you. Perfect alibi for both of us, don't you think? As Derek guided Karen toward their car, she couldn't shake the feeling that the smiley face carved into the boulder had been just the beginning. Sandra Chen had played her perfectly, using Karen's obsession as cover for something much larger. The war for Willowbrook Estates wasn't ending, it was evolving, and Karen was no longer sure which side she was on. But Karen was already planning her campaign strategy when she noticed something that made her blood run cold. Through her bedroom window, she could see the community's prized centerpiece, a massive decorative boulder that marked the entrance to Willowbrook Estates. Someone had spray-painted a smiley face on it. Karen grabbed her emergency kit, industrial paint remover, 3 types of brushes, and a portable floodlight, and raced to the scene. But as she began scrubbing, she realized the smiley face wasn't graffiti. It was carved into the rock. Those monsters, she breathed, running her fingers over the permanently etched vandalism. This wasn't just a violation. It was an act of war against everything she stood for. She pulled out her phone and started recording a Facebook Live video. Neighbors of Willowbrook Estates, we are under attack. Some criminal has permanently defaced our entrance boulder. This is what happens when standards slip, when violations go unchecked, when we allow chaos to creep into our perfect community. The view count climbed as Karen's voice grew more passionate. I'm calling for an emergency community meeting. We need action. We need leadership. We need someone who won't compromise our values for the sake of being nice. By the time she finished the video, 47 neighbors had watched it live. The comments ranged from supportive to concerned to downright alarmed. But it was the private message that appeared 15 minutes later that changed everything. Meet me at the bridge tonight at 11 p.m. Come alone. We need to talk about the boulder. A friend. Karen stared at the message, her mind racing. Someone else cared about standards as much as she did. Someone else understood what was at stake. She didn't notice Derek watching her from the kitchen window, his phone pressed to his ear as he spoke quietly to Jim Morrison about his wife's increasingly erratic behavior. And she definitely didn't see the figure crouched behind the community mailbox cluster, photographing her every move with a telephoto lens. The election was still weeks away, but the real battle for Willowbrook Estates was about to begin. Karen arrived at the bridge 5 minutes early, her tactical flashlight cutting through the October darkness. The retention pond reflected the moon like a mirror, and for a moment, she felt the weight of protecting this perfect community settle on her shoulders like a sacred duty. "You came." The voice emerged from the shadows near the gazebo. Karen spun around to see Sandra Chen stepping into the light. But this wasn't the mild-mannered board member she knew. Sandra's eyes held a calculating intensity that made Karen's skin crawl. "You sent the message?" Karen asked. "The boulder wasn't vandalized, Karen. I had it carved." The words hit like ice water. "You? But you're on the board. You're supposed to protect property values, maintain standards." Sandra laughed, the sound sharp in the still air. "Karen, do you know what our property values have done since you started your crusade? Down 8% in 6 months. Karen's flashlight beam wavered. "That's impossible. I've been improving everything, fixing every violation. You've been terrorizing the neighbors. The Hendersons are selling because you reported them 14 times for grass height. The Pattersons installed a privacy fence specifically to block your surveillance cameras. Mike Torres hired a lawyer. They needed to maintain standards. The standards were fine." Sandra's voice cracked with frustration. "Karen, I carved that smiley face to give you something real to fix, hoping it might satisfy your need to control everything. But instead, you've declared war on the entire neighborhood." Karen backed toward the bridge, her mind reeling. "You don't understand. Without proper enforcement, everything falls apart. The community becomes just another suburb. It already was just another suburb, a nice one where people liked living until you turned it into a police state." The confrontation was interrupted by the sound of approaching vehicles. Multiple trucks with flashing lights converged on the bridge area. Karen's heart sank as she recognized Jim Morrison, climbing out of the lead vehicle, followed by Derek and 3 other board members. "Karen," Jim called out, his voice heavy with resignation, "we need you to come with us." "What is this?" Karen demanded, though part of her already knew. Derek stepped forward, his face etched with pain and determination. "It's an intervention, honey. The board is filing a restraining order. You're banned from all common areas pending a psychiatric evaluation."